Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Yat Shankyai Prapyate Stanam. Ya Sankyai Prapyate Stanam. Tad Yogairapi Gamyate. Tad Yogairapi Gamyate. Ekam Shankyam Cha Yogam Cha. Ekam Sankyam Cha Yogam Cha. Ya Pashyati Sa Pashyati. Yat Sankyai Prapyate Stanam. Tad Yogairapi Gamyate. Ekam Sankyam Cha Yogam Cha. Ya Pashyati Sa Pashyati. Yat Sankyai Prapyate Stanam. Tad Yogairapi Gamyate. Ekam Sankyam Cha Yogam Cha. Ya Pashyati Sa Pashyati. Yat, what? Sankyai, by means of Sankhya philosophy. Prapyate is achieved. Stanam, place. Tat, that. Yogai, by devotional service. Api, also. Gamyate, one can attain. Ekam, one. Sankyam, analytical study. Cha, and. Yogam, action in devotion. Cha, and. Yaha, one who. Pashyati, sees. Saha, he. Pashyati, actually sees. Translation. One who knows that the position reached by means of analytical study can also be attained by devotional service. And one who therefore sees analytical study and devotional service to be on the same level sees things as they are. Purport. The real purpose of philosophical research is to find the ultimate goal of life. Since the ultimate goal of life is self-realization, there's no difference between the conclusion reached by the two processes. By Sankhya philosophical research, one comes to conclusion that a living being, a living entity, is not a part and parcel of the material world, but of the Supreme Spirit whole. Consequently, the Spirit soul has nothing to do with the material world. His actions must be in relation with the Supreme. when he acts in Krishna consciousness, he's actually in his constitutional position. In the first process, he is actually, in the first process, Sankhya, one has to become detached from matter. And in devotional yoga process, one has to attach himself to the work of Krishna consciousness. Essentially, both processes are the same, although superficially, one process appears to involve detachment and the other process appears to involve attachment. Detachment from matter and attachment to Krishna are one and the same. One who can see this, sees things as they are. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yad Kripa Taraham Bande Shri Guru Ninataranam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanyeshwaram. So, in this verse, Krishna continues to clarify the question that Arjuna asked in the beginning of this chapter, and that it coincides with text number 4, again about Sankhya versus yoga, bhakti yoga, Sankhya philosophy, which is synonymous with renunciation of actions. So here, Krishna is saying, Yat Sankhya prapyate stanam. Sankhya means Sankhya philosophy, or which means renunciation. And he's saying that what is achieved, prapyate stanam, that place, is also achieved in devotional service. See, Arjuna's confusion is he's on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, and he's thinking to renounce, right? He wants to renounce his duty because he's feeling on the other side are his relatives and his family members, so teachers. Doesn't want to fight. And when Krishna talks about renunciation, well, then he thinks this is what he would like to do, is renounce this work or his duty as a Kshatriya. Krishna explains that this renunciation is also good, same result, but bhakti yoga, doing your duty, you come to the same result. Krishna's not talking here, when he talks about Sankhya, he talks about renunciation. He's not talking about a particular ashram. And generally we think of the sannyas ashram as a renounced ashram, right? But he's not talking about that, because we see our sannyasis, they are doing so many things. They're also going and preaching and performing various activities for Krishna. We see in the life of Srila Prabhupada, he was traveling, he was going here and there. One time, the TV channel, I think it was, came to one of the temples in Australia, and you know, their conception of the devotees was they don't do any work, right? They just go out on the street and chant and get some money. They don't actually have a job. So that newspaper reporter, or maybe it was TV, they interviewing Srila Prabhupada, and right in the temple room, Prabhupada was sitting on the Vyasa-san, and all the devotees were there. And this person said, so do you do any work? And Prabhupada said, yes, we are working. Then, and at my age, I'm working harder than you. Right? Traveling around the world several times in a year, can you do that? he asked the reporter. And the reporter tried to change the topic now, but Prabhupada wouldn't have it. He said, we're working hard for Krishna, traveling and guiding and doing interviews, TV shows. There's programs where Prabhupada was on TV shows, right? But working very hard. And not only that, with all the activities that he was doing, he was getting up at 12 o'clock at night when everyone else was asleep and translating his books, right? So very hard work the devotees do, but they do for Krishna. But the non-devotees can't understand that. And because they don't see things as they're supposed to see them. Tad yogar abhigamyate. So yoga, by devotional service, api also gamyate, one can attain. So whatever you can attain by renunciation, that you can also attain by devotional service, right? And that is the sense that they're one and the same. Obviously, they're different processes. Sankhya Yoga, the analytical study of the material elements, right? Krishna describes those in Bhagavad Gita, Bhumir, Apo, Nalo, Vayu, the Panch Mahabhuta, earth, water, fire, sky, right? And also the subtle elements, Kam, Mano, Buddheva, Cha, mind, intelligence, and false ego, the Sukshma Sarira, the subtle body, right? So these are all analyzed. And why is the analyzation is there? So that the analyzer can understand that he has nothing to do with all these elements. The common mistake of the conditioned soul is that they identify with the material circumstance, the body, right? The body. We think we are this body, right? I'm an American, I'm Indian, right? I'm Gujarati, I'm Marathi, I'm Bihari, I'm Sindhi, I'm etc., etc., etc. So by this analytical study of Sankhya Yoga, the living entity understands that I'm not this. Then what am I? I'm eternal spirit soul. I'm part of the supreme spirit. And in the beginning, that analyzation or conclusion comes to understand about Brahman, right? I am Brahman, and I'm part of the Param Brahma. Now the Mayavadis, they misconceive, and they think that they are the Param Brahma, right? But this is due to the poor fund of knowledge. But with proper knowledge, one understands that yes, I'm Aham Brahmasmi, part and parcel of the Param Brahma, the Supreme Person. So that conclusion comes about in the same way by performance of activities in relationship to Krishna and for the pleasure of Krishna. That's devotional service. Krishna wants to point this out to Arjuna again and again, right? So that he's not confused. That him doing his duty, right, will also get the same result of, the Sankhya and renunciation of the material world. And in fact, it's because Krishna wants him to do it, it's even more beneficial. But anyway, Krishna is taking Arjuna through this step by step so that he can understand. And of course, Arjuna is simply taking the position of a conditioned soul. You can imagine how elevated Arjuna is. He's the personal friend of Lord Krishna, right? So not only in this particular instance, but in Krishna says that you and I have had many lifetimes. I remember them all, but you do not, right? So Just think how elevated position that Arjuna is. But still he's taking this position of not understanding for our benefit. And then he says, Ekam Sankyam Cha Yogam Cha. Well, here again he's saying that they're one, right? But they're one in the conclusion, not one in process. Process, Prabhupada mentions in the purport, one involves becoming detached, and the other involves becoming attached, right? Attached to what? Attached to Krishna's service, attached to activities that are in relation to Krishna's service, Nava Bhakti, right? Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, not performing Nava Bhakti, becoming attached to those things. And by analyzing the material world, certainly one will become detached, but at the same time, one who performs Nava Bhakti, the 9 processes of devotional service, beginning by hearing and chanting, and remembering the Supreme Lord, they will also become detached, right? So the goal is the same. That's why Ekam Sankyai Yogacha. Their goal is the same, right? To become attached to the Supreme Lord. And one who can actually understand this, right? See, Arjuna's bewildered. He's thinking, well, first you're saying renunciation, and then you're saying work and devotion. Well, which one is it? He's not seen properly, so Krishna's trying to help him understand this point. And one who understands that although the processes are different, the goal is the same. And if you can see like this, then Krishna says, Ya pashyati sapashyati. It sounds like double talk. Pashyati pashyati. Ya pashyati sapashyati. Right? But see, who can see? If you can see this, then you're seeing correctly. If you understand that the goal of Sankhya, of renunciation, is to become attached to Krishna, and if you understand that devotional service goal is also to become attached to Krishna, then if you see that, then you're actually seeing properly. Right? One may see the 2 different processes and think they're different, but he's not seeing properly. He doesn't have a proper understanding of the conclusion that Krishna is giving here. Prabhupada mentions detachment from matter and attachment to Krishna are one and the same. By performing devotional service, it states in Srimad Bhagavatam that 2 things are concomitant by rendering devotional service. One is that you'll get knowledge. By devotional service, you'll get knowledge by rendering service to Krishna. And the other is that you'll become detached, right? You'll get jnana and you'll get vairagya by rendering devotional service. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was once traveling in South India, and there was a Brahmin. He used to sit by the bathing ghat, and he would have a Bhagavad Gita, and he would look at that Bhagavad Gita all day, but he was angoti chap. He didn't know how to read. So people used to criticize him, saying that, Hare, what kind of a, Brahmin are you? You can't read, and you're carrying Bhagavad Gita. So at one time, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came there. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw this Brahmin, and he inquired from him. He said, you're coming here, you're taking Bhagavad Gita, looking at it, but you don't know how to read. So why is that? Just asked him. And the Brahmin replied that my spiritual master told me to read Bhagavad Gita, but I'm illiterate. I don't know how to read. But every day I take Bhagavad Gita and I see, in my mind's eye, it comes to me that how wonderful Krishna is, that he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but yet he's become the charioteer of Arjuna. And whenever I think of that scene of Krishna driving the chariot for Arjuna, I just become overwhelmed and tears come to my eyes. You know, I become overwhelmed with ecstasy. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu embraced the Brahmin and he told him, you understand the Bhagavad Gita. You know the purport of Bhagavad Gita. So, he's actually seen, right? By rendering devotional service, one will come to the conclusion of Sankhya. One will actually come detached from the material world by becoming attached to the service of Krishna. Right now, in the conditioned state, we have attachment to this body and the things connected to this body, like family, society, country. But actually, this living entity has nothing to do with these things, right? In our previous birth, we had a maybe different mother, different father, different country, different society. Who knows? Maybe you were speaking Russian in your last birth. Right? You don't know. So if you were speaking Russian in your last birth, and you're going to speak in your next birth Lower Slabovian or Chinese or something like that, does that mean you're Indian? Lower Slabovian? Russian? What does it mean? What are you? Right? You're there, but the body changes, and you get a different identity, a different language, a different family, right? When King Chitraketu, his son was poisoned, right? He was so distraught. Narada Muni and Parsa Muni, they brought that soul back into the body of the child of King Chitraketu. So he was saying, oh, my son, this is your father. And he said, the soul that had come back to the dead body said, which father are you? I've had so many fathers. Which one are you? Right? And it's true for all of us. We had so many lifetimes, so many fathers, so many mothers, right? But the conditioned soul becomes so overwhelmed by the material energy, by the circumstance of the material engagement, that it's very difficult for him to understand and be detached. But devotional service is very powerful. You know, whatever circumstance one may be in, by rendering devotional service, one can gain the knowledge, see things as they are. Yapashyati sapashyati. Really see things as they are. Right now, in the conditioned state, we're not able to do that, right? We think that we'll be happy by keeping this body happy. If I do something good for the body, then I'll be happy, right? But it's just an illusion. And Prabhupada gives the example that there's this fan, right? And the fan's running. And I'm thinking, oh, nice air, I'm enjoying. But no. If you see things properly, I'm suffering. Because it's hot, I need the fan. And the air from the fan, I'm trying to reduce the suffering because it's hot, right? So am I enjoying, or am I trying to reduce my suffering? Yes. And sense gratification is like that. It's not real enjoyment. In this material world, there is no real enjoyment. Real enjoyment comes from the spiritual platform. Because that's what we are. We're spirit souls. We're not this material body. And therefore, whatever we try to do materially for this bodily enjoyment, it's never satisfying. But people are so befooled. They think that they are going to increase their enjoyment by working hard, but therefore they're taking so much hard labor. One may be a crorepati, but he has to work very hard to get that money. Very hard. Oh, paisa aisa nahi aata hai, asani se aata hai. You have to work really hard. But at the end of the day, are they really enjoying? Huh? They're in anxiety. Why are they in anxiety? They've earned this money by the hard labor, and the government is right there to take it away. Huh? Take it away. So therefore, they're trying to hide it. Hide so they don't have to pay taxes. Right? Anxiety. Lots of anxiety is there. An intelligent person realizes that from the activities in my previous birth, so much happiness is meant to come. It's going to come, no matter what you do. Your allotment of happiness is fixed. And you can't change it, no matter how hard you try. And the example is that we try to avoid unhappiness, we try to avoid distress, right? But still distress comes, still unhappiness comes. Nobody wants to suffer from COVID-19. Still they're getting COVID-19. Nobody wants it, right? Because of one's previous activities. Therefore, one has to suffer. It's fixed. No matter how much money you have, no matter how much hard you work, your suffering is fixed. You can go to the best hospital, best doctors, and still you'll die. Because it doesn't depend on doctors. It doesn't depend on the hospital, right? It depends on our previous activities, which is there by the arrangement of the Lord. So in the same way, whatever pleasure we're going to receive it. Therefore, Prahlad Maharaj, it describes in Srimad Bhagavatam that this life is not meant to be spent chasing after happiness. Even Lord Rishabdev also describes, don't waste this human form of life trying to find sense gratification that's available even for the pigs and the dogs. Right? The dogs are eating nicely, pigs are eating nicely, they're having sex, so many bachas nikalte hain, right? Human beings, they can have one child, maybe two. Ek saath, kutte can have 5, 6. So they're doing. That's available. They're eating, they're sleeping. Huh? You have to get up and go to the work. The dog doesn't have to get up. It can continue to sleep if he wants, right? So that way of sleeping is, in Maharashtra they have a saying, that sleeping is Parama Anand in the early morning. Early morning sleeping is Parama Anand, right? So if you're after this Parama Anand, you take birth as a dog and have your Parama Anand. But in the human form of life, you have to get up, go to work, you have to work hard, right? So all of these great sages and incarnations, like Rishabdev and the great devotee Prahlad, they're saying this human form of life is meant for something more than that. we also have to spend time to understand what is the goal of life. Who am I? Am I this body or something different? And what should I do to perfect this human life, to end the sufferings? We have to give time for that also. And therefore, Srila Prabhupada, he started this Krishna consciousness movement so that people can get an opportunity to engage in the process of devotional service, in which they'll get the benefits of all types of renunciation, Sankhya philosophy, etc., etc. And without this Krishna consciousness movement, simply we'll be bound up by our karma and have to take birth again in the material world, again to suffer old age, disease, and death. So this Krishna consciousness movement is a great boon for everyone who wants to become free from the entanglements of this material world. Hare Krishna. Are there any questions? Mike? Go ahead. No, Arjun's decision to renounce his duty was based on sense gratification. His idea was, if we kill all our relatives, even if we gain the heavenly kingdom, or this kingdom, or any other kingdom, who will we enjoy it with? So his point was enjoyment. That was the point. Sense gratification. And Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita to enlighten him about what was actual, what was his duty and why he should perform it. Actually, Srila Prabhupada has given us all these books, especially Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, so that we can understand what we should do in this, with this life. We've obtained it after so many lifetimes. We've gotten this human form of life. So it's very valuable, because with the human form of life, we can solve all the problems. All the problems, the real problems. Right? Yes?
Thank you, Prabhuji, for this wonderful point is coming out, that how Arjuna take the part for the renunciation, and then Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita, then Arjuna returned back to the same situation. So my question in this regard only, Prabhuji, that sometimes we also getting in this type of situation that we thinking that if we take the step back, that is good for all of us. Like instead of going to the forward, we know sometime also that if we go to the forward, it is good for the future. But by seeing the emotion way, or we seeing the family attachment through this way, we thinking that we can take the step backwards, and next time we are coming in the power, then we can take the step, move forward. So that is the good idea, or what we have to do in those type of situations when we are in a lower stage, and the other party is in a power, would call it the in power stage. In those type of stage, we have to wait till the time we are not coming in the power, or we have to bold movely in that stage also. And what are the result coming out?
If you want to be successful at anything, whether it's material or spiritual, you should always be looking how to go forward. If you want to be successful at business or school or anything. You should be looking in a forward way. I have this lesson to learn. I have this goal to achieve. Looking, being reluctant to do that, how will you progress? So we should always be forward-looking in our devotional service, setting some goals for ourselves and trying to achieve those goals. Like many people are chanting 1 round or 2 round. They can keep that standard. Why should they go back to no rounds? 1 step back is because whatever sadhana that you're performing, if you give it up, thinking I'll take 1 step back, it's very hard to come back to 2 rounds. You may be doing 2 rounds, but if you give it up to come back to 2 rounds, it's very, very difficult because of the mind, the conditioning of the mind, etc. The mind is just like a wild animal, right? That you can't trust it. Judd Bharat explains to King Rahugana, the mind is, you can't trust it. It's a very unstable thing, the uncontrolled mind. It'll give so many excuses to not perform devotional service. So better to ignore the mind. And, moving forward in devotional service depends so much on association. If you have association, then you can maintain that where you are, and you'll also go forward. But if you give up the association with devotees, then you'll take the association with persons that are not interested in devotional service. And if you take up association with people that are not interested in devotional service, naturally what's going to happen? Right? And the end result of that is birth again in the material world, another chapter in the book of life, right? Another body. And the problem with that is that things are becoming more and more degraded in the material world, isn't it? When I first came to Bombay in 1977, right? It wasn't that crowded. You could drive downtown probably in about 45 minutes in traffic, or 1 hour. Now, in traffic, it takes 2.5, 3 hours to drive downtown, right? So the quality of life is reducing. The intensity of stress is increasing. B.F. Skinner, he was a psychologist. He did experiments with rats. He kept a fixed number of rats in a box. So they would, have normal social interacting. And then he increased the number of rats. And as he increased the number of rats in the same box, when they became more and more crowded, they began to act irrationally. They would fight. They would bite each other, right? As he increased the number of rats in the box, right? So it's the same thing for humans. Now, the city of Bombay is so crowded, right? And everybody is biting each other. Actually, right? So, as Kali Yuga increases, all these encumbrances of life will also increase. So Srila Prabhupada says, and people will become less interested in spiritual life. Just see, now in this lockdown is opening, right? So what did they open? Did they open the temples? No. Open temple, very dangerous. Open liquor store, yes, open liquor store, right? And people, what will they do without liquor? अरे मंदिर खोलने का क्या फायदा है? Just see the condition of the situation. When Maharaj Parikshit was there, he was touring the kingdom, and he saw one Shudra dressed as a king beating a cow. He didn't say anything. He took out his sword to kill him on the spot. No high court, no city civil court, no arrest, no FIR. You kill him right there. But this is government, proper government. But it's Kali Yuga, and Kali Yuga is increasing day by day. So Srila Prabhupada has recommended that we become serious about our devotional service. Very serious. So that we, in this lifetime, we can go home, back to Godhead, back to the spiritual world. You don't even want to, you know, some persons who study the Vedas and perform ritualistic ceremonies of the Vedas, their idea is to go to the heavenly planets. And even by chanting the holy name, if we don't have pure chanting of the holy name, we could go to the heavenly planets. Nam Aparad, by Nam Aparad, you can go to the heavenly planets. By Nam Abbas, which is a dim glimmer of the pure name, you can go to the Brahm Jyoti, Brahman realization. But only by Shuddhnam, offenseless chanting, can you go to the spiritual world. So we have to be careful. We certainly don't want to go to the heavenly planets. And for a devotee, Brahman realization is not at all relishable. Not at all. Just think, if you go to the heavenly planets, Kali Yuga is going to go on for another 400,000 years, right? 400,000. And it's this bad. Can you imagine what it'd be like a couple 100,000 years from now? If you go to the heavenly planets, you'll live there for a couple 100,000 years and then come back to Mrityulok. How it will be? The 12th canto of the Bhagavatam describes that people will be like cannibals, eating people. And devotees will have to hide in caves. Have to hide in caves. So it's not a very good choice to skirt and float in our devotional service. Take forward steps. Try to progress in devotional service. Be as progressive as you can in devotional service, so that the result of going back home, back to Godhead, will be there. One more question, yes.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, sometimes we think that I want that particular service, I will do it, not other. I will do some sadhana or that. Is it right or wrong?
You can do 9 types of devotional service. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Archanam, Bandhanam, Padasevanam, Dasyam. You can't do Sakyam and Atmanivedanam because, you know, either you're the friend of Krishna or not. You can't practice to be Krishna's friend, right? You're either fully surrendered or you're not fully surrendered. You can't practice that. But 7 you can practice. So any one of them is good, right?
You mentioned that Arjuna want to enjoy. So
Huh?
Arjuna want to enjoy.
Yes.
So Krishna correct him.
Krishna corrected him.
So
And Krishna is correcting us too. By rendering devotional service, staying in association with devotees, Krishna will correct our mentality. Our mentality to enjoy in this material world will become cleansed by association and by rendering devotional service. He'll rectify us in so many ways. But without a devotional service, without association, and without devotional service, then it becomes practically impossible, because the human being is a social animal, will have association. If not with devotees, then you'll associate with other persons, right? Who are not interested to hear about Krishna, who are not interested to chant the holy name. They want to go to the cinema, go to the tavern, go to, places like that. So that will be the influence.
Sometimes it is thought come that I enjoy that particular service.
I what?
I try to enjoy sadhana. Or
Why shouldn't you enjoy sadhana? If you enjoy sadhana, you're fortunate. Why you shouldn't enjoy sadhana? Right? Chanting the holy name, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, worshipping Tulsi, right? This is enjoyable, real enjoyment. Right? If you don't enjoy that, then what will you enjoy? You'll enjoy things that are not connected to Krishna. Enjoyment there will search out. You either enjoy things that are in relation to Krishna, or you'll try to enjoy things that are not in relation to Krishna. The end result of trying to enjoy things not in relation to Krishna is so many bodies, life after life, life after life. And the end result of trying to enjoy things that are in relationship to Krishna is you can, as Krishna says, you can join me.
sometimes it has happened that authority gives some services and I cannot do it properly, or some lackings. So
whatever service we're giving, we should try and do it to the best of our ability. Yoga shemam bahamyam. Krishna says, I'll, carry what you lack, but we should try and do our best. Any other questions? Sure.
Puja, as after this shloka, next shloka is coming that once Arjuna understand that he is not able to understand the situation, how to tackle, then he is ready to make the disciple of the Krishna. So then the discussion is starting between the guru and the disciple. Currently the discussion is happening between the two friends, whatever I understand from this Bhagavad Gita. Then after that discussion is started from the disciple and the guru. So he accepts the Krishna as a guru and he accepts himself as a disciple.
Yeah.
I had Prabhuji in one of the lecture that Krishna especially choose the Arjuna because he is a friend of the Krishna.
Yeah.
Krishna does not choose the Yudhishthir because Yudhishthir is bigger in the age, and Krishna does not choose the Sahadev because Sahadev is like a child for the Krishna. Krishna especially choose the Arjuna only because he is a friend. So he coming into the world. Now after coming to
but when he says, I impart this science to you because you're my devotee also, is friend of Krishna, but also devoted to Krishna. He understood also who Krishna is. Everyone on the planet, when Krishna appeared, didn't understand who he was, right? But Arjuna, as he describes in the Bhagavad Gita, Param Brahma, Param Dhamma, Pavitram, Paramam Maman. So this is Arjuna's qualification. Yes, he certainly is Krishna's friend, but also he's devoted to Krishna, right? As Krishna's friend. He understands Krishna's position as the Supreme Lord. So therefore he was qualified to understand the message of Bhagavad Gita. If anyone wants to understand the message of Gita, they have to become devoted to Krishna. Then they can understand Gita. Otherwise, without understanding that Krishna is God, what is the value of Bhagavad Gita? If Krishna is an ordinary person like you or me, then why we'll study his book? Why for so many thousands of years people are talking about Bhagavad Gita? Why? Because Krishna is God. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha. Right? The Blessed Lord said. Right? Therefore, it's important. You should pay attention. Right? And if you become a devotee of Krishna, then you'll actually understand. Then you can actually understand. You become qualified to understand. Okay. Thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanandi.